volunteer you guys to get started. Paul, do you have some, I think you're there. Paul, would you share a little bit of what you've kind of had happen the last few months, or maybe even in March and April, and what you would tell everybody that's having some downtimes right now?
Right. Well, you know what, we hit the ground running in March when we were given this, I guess, pandemic or whatever you want to call it now. So we got to busy to work with the Zoom classes, producing videos, but we just went back to old school service. Lots of postcards, deliveries to the houses, belt graduations. So we never really stopped the business. We were always doing something. So we were always teaching. We were always continuing with the students seeing progress. We were always calling. We were always lettering. So the line of communication was really good. And then we just we got to busy. We kept the advertising going. I probably spent more money than I ever did during this time in advertising. We doubled our budget, and then we started really getting a bunch of leads. We found out that instead of people not coming out, they wanted to do something. So I mean, God, I think from March until July, we probably had well over 400, 500 leads that we captured from the school. We had 100 alone in July. So we got to doing intros online. And then we built up our confidence because it was new to us too. Then we started signing people up online through the intro process. And then we started.
And Paul, I hate to interrupt you while you're talking because I want to keep hearing from you. But, you know, if some of you guys are thinking, well, he must have had it easier in his state. He's in New Jersey, and New Jersey was completely screwed up and screwed up a lot longer than a lot of your other states. You think you have it worse. Most of you do not have it worse than New Jersey. So anyway, sorry to interrupt you, Paul.
No, that's true. In Jersey, we're a little backwards here. We're still backwards here. They're just starting to open up gyms September 1, and it's 25% occupancy. But we never really stopped the process. You know, we listened to the masters, Moody and Master Smith and Master Oliver, of course, and the other members, and we just got to work. We got to work and we started to keep making things happen. But the real, I think the magic was we never stopped the advertising. We never stopped the process of capturing leads, following up with leads, booking appointments, hands-on students. When I mean hands-on, I mean like we kept contacting. We would we'd let them know this is what we're doing this week. This is what precautions we're taking. This is what we're going to do next month. So from March all the way till now, and then next thing you know, we're doing progress checks and we're renewing people and we're signing people up. I mean, we had, I think in July, I think we had a dozen contracts. In August, we have a dozen contracts, $8,000 cash money paid in full. You know, when I tell that to some people, they kind of think like I'm, you know, just telling stories. But I'm like, nah, I got a business to run. I got mouths to feed. We're putting business on. How's that?
That's good. And I mean, that's exactly what we wanted to hear. I mean, I hope that everybody's getting the idea. One thing that I heard you say was you kept on marketing and doubled it. It wasn't that you said something, you kept working, but I think, Paul, what you said was you worked harder. I mean, that's what a lot of our guys are saying. They work 2 or 3 times as hard. Nobody's making having the illusion that it wasn't a lot of work. I mean, we're saying
it was a tremendous amount of work. All the staff members, myself included. I mean, everybody. I don't think they've taken their foot off the gas. You know, we're still busy. You know, we're still trying to service people. And the number one thing I get from parents all the times when I have the conversation was, they said, "Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh my God, thank you for what you're doing for the children." And that was big because the parents need that help because of, you know, all the in-house training that they have to do with their kids. But they're very grateful. And the testimonials, I probably got more testimonials during this time than probably any other time because they they see the value of what we're doing, and they're grateful.
Absolutely. Master Moody, one of the questions I'm sure a lot of people might ask, and also I'll jump in and get to it first. Paul, what type of marketing were you doing that was specifically working? And let's not worry now about March, April, May. I mean, that's history. What's been working this summer? I know an awful lot of our members have had actually a better July and August this year than last year, and frankly, we've been having really busy summers, not slow summers. So, what was working particularly well for you?
Well, you know what, the Facebook ads,
Yeah.
Elite Digital has been very good to us, and we've done quite well. I mean, we've done some old school stuff like guest passes. Like tomorrow night, we have a big movie night, outdoor movie night with screen and pizza and popcorn and all that good stuff. But really, 90% of it has really just been Facebook.
Yeah. Okay. So that's been working well. And by the way, social media and whether in Google, which is not social media, but search media and social media really isn't free, right? I mean, people get this idea, I'm going to tweet and I'm going to post some things in Facebook and one thing or another, and people will flock to me. What we're talking about here is using an outsourced ad agency, having them do focused and targeted, relatively, well, not particularly high budget, but, putting a budget into effective paid advertising is what we're talking about. Paul, how did, let's talk about four of the elephants in the room, and I see we have Rachel with us and a couple of others. I didn't mean to just jump in full bore here, Master Moody. Didn't mean to cut you off. But on the four issues here, Paul,
I had to set up the breakout rooms for everybody, Master Oliver. Just so everybody knows, if you want to have a question, raise your hand, or in this case, we have the chat available for you. Not for questions, but just to let us know that you want to ask a question live, because we'd rather have people live. And then we're going to be having you go, if it's okay to say this at this point, Master Oliver, we've got Bob and Mindy on standby in our breakout rooms, and we're going to be sending some of you guys to the breakout rooms so that you can we've got a whole bunch of resources we want to send to you. People have not been taking advantage of this. We want to make sure that you get them. So we're going to send you to one of them to make sure that we can send those to you and get them to you. So we're going to be, when you see join the breakout room, make sure you join that real quick, and they'll get your information, send you some stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oliver, just to let you know, Scott Sullivan, who is in Houston, we've had some hard states that are doing great. He had 26 enrollments this month already, still had 20 intros in the pipeline that he was hoping to close this week, and now he got shut down because of the hurricane. So he had to evacuate. So, I told him, well, at least you're up to 26 enrollments. It's not like you got shut down when you had 10 enrollments and then you had 20 in the pipeline. So, it's working all over. It's not just, these states that are opened up completely, because Texas was not real good at it.
Well, Brick, New Jersey is in the belly of the beast with almost as bad as being in Manhattan, I would have to say. So, if you don't know where Paul is, he's directly between, how would you describe it, Paul? North of Atlantic City, south of New York City, and directly to the, what would it be, to the east of Philadelphia. So is that a fairly decent description? So, and Paul, unmute yourself here.
We might have to unmute him. I think
okay.
I think Mindy put.
Mindy, can you unmute Paul again?
Who do we want to unmute?
Paul Pendergast.
Okay.
And Rachel, and Jan. But Paul, let's talk about the four elephants in the room as soon as you can talk. I guess you could do sign language. Master Smith knows sign language.
There you go. Jan's
not me so much.
Rachel's
so, the elephants in the room during the pandemic were people got the facility shut down, you earlier than most. And so our rule number one was keep all of our students, right? So let's not let anybody get lost. Number 2 was keep doing renewals. Number 3 then became, once we figured out how we're going to keep all of our students intact, let's get busy on marketing and keep the flow of new people coming in. Then we had to figure out how to do first intro, second intro, enrollment conference by Zoom. And then we had to kind of cycle back and say, oh, well, we need belt tests and progress updates and stripes and all that other stuff. Let's kind of go through one by one. On a student retention standpoint, about what percentage of your student body? Well, let me ask you another question. What was your active between the two schools back in February, and what's your active count now?
Back in February, it was probably about, about 425.
Okay, and where are you at now?
It'll probably be about maybe. Whoops.
Yeah, that's you.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Probably about 4.
Okay, so you're down a smidgen, right?
We're down. When we did the numbers, it was about 10%.
Where
Right.
were we, Rich? 320, and we're no.
Go ahead, Jan.
So I was just asking Rachel where we were. I forgot that I was unmuted.
Unmuted.
Sorry.
Well, that's fine. As soon as Rachel has the answer, let's share it with everybody. But
She's muted. She's
Yeah.
muted.
oh, can you somebody unmute Rachel as well there, Master Moody or Mindy?
Hi, okay, we were at 326 before, and we're at 297. I think
Okay.
that's okay.
Okay, so
No,
you
we're
know,
not over 3, Rach. We're over 3 now.
Oh, we did get back up over 300.
Because
Okay.
I have enrolled.
Because
We've
there's-
enrolled 16 people this month.
Okay.
So we've had a pretty good enrollment.
Yeah, even though your numbers dropped down a little bit, your gross, you're still, you had a couple $100,000 months, and almost, was that last month you almost broke that again?
well,
Yeah, last month we were 87. The month before 106.
Which both of those months are 23,000 higher than we've ever done in June or July. So
Yeah.
those were still our very best June and Julys ever.
and that was without summer camps this year, right?
We did have summer camp.
Oh, you did have some. Okay, my mistake. But I mean, truth be told, most martial arts schools are down 10%, right before school starts anyway, right? Is you have some people who go on vacation, one thing or another, in July and August. So pandemic, no pandemic. In fact, going back to where I was going with Paul there for a second, and thanks for jumping in, Jen, is when we talk to schools who did a halfway decent job keeping their student body, what we'll find is they're worried about the fact that their student count dropped. But if I started at 300 active, and let's say I lose 5% a month, so if I were to go March, April, May, June without enrolling any new students, right there I'm down 20%, because what happened is way too many schools, they made the bad decision of, oh, there's a pandemic going on, nobody's going to want to do martial arts classes, and they stopped all of their efforts at marketing. Maybe they thrive predominantly on referrals, on referral events and so forth, and then they stopped that and didn't shift it to Zoom. Maybe they pulled their ad budgets. A lot of our schools do a lot of live events, so we would have loved to have been out the movie theaters for Black Widow, which of course is postponed, and would have loved to have been out at July 4th events and at Memorial Day events and so forth, which of course mostly got canceled. But what you always have to do is have what I stole from Jay Abraham, the Parthenon. You got to have 15, 20 things going on all the time. And then when a couple of them get taken away, you've still got traffic going on. And Paul, as you said, when things get more difficult, rather than pulling back, you double down. And that's exactly the right way to do it, right? And I mean, the amount of money you spent in focusing on, in this case, some more social media marketing with Facebook, the amount of money pales in comparison with the gross that you would have lost by not doing that, and it pales in comparison with the money you're making through the new enrollments that you got in.
Absolutely.
Jan, you and Rachel probably led the pack. I know Olga and a few others did as well, but you guys got right on renewals pretty quickly as well. So again, kudos to you, and thanks for leading the pack on that. Tell us all about that. How you pretty quickly shifted and kept your progress updates going, shifting people from 1 year to black belt programs, all that kind of stuff?
I think some of that was the momentum we already had going. We were already pre-qualifying them for black belt training and all that. And then Rachel just really put all her energy into signing them all up. So she can tell you how she did it.
Yeah, we got all of our instructors immediately. The day that we closed all of we mailed out, we stayed till 1 a.m. one night, mailing letters to all the students that night, the night we decided to close. We mailed letters to everybody. And then the next day, I separated a list of all of our students, and every instructor called and contacted each one of our students. And we continued to follow up until we touched base with them on what we were doing and how things were going, and progress checking from there. And we just really stayed in contact with them throughout the whole process, and did a whole renewal blitz, everything that we normally do, the goal setting, all of that kind of stuff that you guys have taught us in the past. We did a renewal blitz and reached out to every single person that we had not joined our black belt leadership program, and went from there.
Excellent. And again, what probably the elephant in the room is an awful lot of school owners get it through their mind that they can't do business in a situation like this. And, during the last recession, we heard a lot of this as well. But when you look at a couple of things, one is people freaking out about unemployment and folks don't have money in one thing or another. Well, I can tell you what, that's certainly true with some, right? If I was a waitress, a waiter, or even if I was an orthopedic surgeon, there's categories where the airlines are having some problems, the travel industry and generally the cruise ships and so forth. But there's a whole big swaths of the economy that were just fine. And even at the peak of unemployment, I think there's like 10 million jobs been added back in the last 90 days. Even at the peak of employment, here's one study. Harvard did a study based upon credit card receipts, and they looked at spending patterns, right? And what they found was, do you think that defaults on credit cards went up or went down during the pandemic? They went down. Do you think that balances on credit cards went up or they went down? They went down. In other words, people were paying down the balances. They were taking discretionary income and liquidating debt. What does that mean? Well, underlying that in that Harvard study, what they found was people in the top 25% and certainly also in the top 50% who have discretionary income tend to spend it on martial arts lessons, on private training, on massage, on going to the theater, on going out to nice restaurants, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's where their discretionary income goes. And so since they were unable to spend money there, they had actually more discretionary income, not less discretionary income. And with that money sit in the bank, they were, one, spending less money on their credit cards because they were unable to do many of those things. And number two, they were paying down balances. So far from it being that the vast majority of good clientele were having financial issues, the vast majority of the type of prospects, of the type of students that we like to target actually were doing just fine and had more cash flow, had more discretionary income available, right? The second thing, and this is what we've been saying for quite a while, and luckily it proved out to be true, is over the summer, you really had a weird confluence of events where people feel like they've been under house arrest for March, April, May, right? They're really looking for something to do. They're looking for an activity to do. In many cases, like I don't know about your area in Denver, movie theaters open just in the last 5 or 6 days. Restaurants are kind of gradually coming back. So a lot of them are open with limited distancing and so forth. Plays and concerts and all that stuff are still nowhere to be seen, and nothing on the horizon. Big live events and things in the park and so forth, none of that stuff is happening right now. So what you had is people sort of under house arrest who really were looking for things to do, looking for training, education, opportunities. At the same confluence of events, you went from a portion of the world knowing how to use, like this app, Zoom, to essentially everybody knowing how to use video conferencing, right? They were working from home. Their elementary kids, elementary school, middle school, one thing or another, were using it. So there was a wonderful confluence of events where all of these things started happening. So what we also found was, even though some of our live event marketing went away, just because they weren't happening, whether it's movie theaters or things in the park or whatever, is Facebook's engagement went up by 640% at peak. I haven't seen the number in the last month or so. Number two is there was a little bit of a lull with search marketing, but search marketing for our category is way up again. As people are out looking and looking to see if they can find lessons, and looking to see if you're going to be open, and looking to see if there's opportunity there. The other thing, which I never would have predicted, because I just absolutely despise email at this point, is people started reading their email again. So, you know, if you had asked me back in December about email marketing, I'm like, well, why bother? You know, let's do direct mail and text messaging. But actually, they started reading their email again, in part because a lot of people started working from home who don't normally work from home, oftentimes in work environments that weren't using Basecamp or Slack or some comparable. And all of a sudden, kids are doing classes from home, and parents are watching for notifications about what needs to happen and how it all works and all that kind of stuff. Even though the kids might be using Google Classroom or a comparable, the parents were having to engage in, watch, and pay attention, and actually read their email. So email got much more effective overnight. Facebook got much more effective overnight. And in fact, the other side of Facebook was big dumb companies. You know what they did during the pandemic? They pulled a lot of their advertising budget. Facebook lost some of their budget for a variety of reasons, but big advertisers started pulling their budget. What happens in ad rates in any kind of broadcast media, TV, radio, newspaper, Facebook, Google? What happens when there's less demand? The prices fall, right? So all of a sudden the prices fell, the engagement went up, people were paying more attention to their email, they were paying more attention to their Facebook feed. Rachel, give us some thoughts on what's been working for you guys on marketing.
So one of the big ones was Elite Digital and the Facebook ads, and we've used Elite Digital for a while, and it's always been worth it. We've always enrolled 1 or 2 students a month off of it, so it's always, you know, we've always had a decent ROI on it. But like as soon as everything shut down, I think in June we had 9 or 10 enrollments just from Elite Digital. So that was a big one. In our area, the Facebook usually isn't a huge thing, but we kind of relied on that quite a bit. We've done a lot of just connecting with the schools, and that's something with schools starting that we're doing even more with. We've been doing some buddy days and referrals.
Right. We got 90 appointments from the schools just last week, 90 appointments. So that's not anything little.
Yeah.
It's not what we had last year, but 90 appointments is a lot. And I want to say one thing. I'm sorry.
In 1 week, that's incredible. Jan, explain that. And again, say what you're going to say. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but then explain that. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll say 2 things. First of all, I wanted to go back, and you know, when this all started, I stopped my advertising. I was one of those people that I got freaked out. I just wanted to take care of my people and try to keep them all, and I just kind of freaked out. And then I started getting on the calls, and I started hearing what Amanda was doing, and she was like putting more money into it and getting all these people, and I'm like, how is she doing it? And then it convinced me I better start doing it, because you're going to lose people regardless. So that helped me a lot, being part of this group and seeing other people doing it. Yeah. And then the schools, so normally we go and we do all the school orientations, and we get tons of appointments, and August and September for us is our best months ever, because we get in the schools, we make all these appointments, and they come in, we give them 2 free weeks, and we sign up a lot of people. Well, this year we were thinking, no, we're not going to get in the schools. I immediately thought we can't do it. And then I started listening to the group, and Master Moody's like, wait a minute, try, go ahead and ask. All they could do is say no. And so we did. And we got into 2 schools, and those 2 schools that I got into have yielded us 90 appointments so far. We've already signed up some of those people from the appointment. You know, I had Monday.
That's just from 2 schools?
Yes, sir.
Oh, wow. Good. I keep interrupting you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, 2 schools. That's all we could get into. But 2 schools, better than nothing. Let me tell you. Thank God we got into them, because at least it's giving us some new people to bring on right now.
Absolutely. Well, and you mentioned Amanda. I haven't seen her on here. Amanda, if you're on, send up a flare or something, so we'll get you engaged here after our rap music engagement from our freak show. But go back to as this thing rolled out, Jan, you and Rachel, and we'll give kudos to Rachel here. You always love love to applaud your daughter, but she was really hustling, is you guys kind of set the bar for student retention and renewals early on, but Amanda Olson really came out of the chute on enrollments, right? And I think Master Moody mentioned it before, but the number, if I remember correctly, correct me if you remember it's slightly different, she did 45 enrollments between April 1st and about May 10th. That sound about right, Jen?
Yeah.
And we're all watching, and by the way, she was doing a lot of the things that we've always had her doing, and everybody doing, but she was doing a great job, as was a lot of our other members, on getting publicity, getting on TV, getting the press to come cover the virtual classes, et cetera, obviously ramping up the Facebook advertising, doing a great job really positioning herself as a local expert, and doing a good job of keeping her students engaged, as well as a lot of other grassroots things, but really doing a good job of getting out there in the community. And by the way, before we talked about Brick, New Jersey. Jan, tell everybody about your location, because they're gonna think you're in Malibu or something.
So our average income is about 52,000, and we're in Middleburg, Florida. It's the outskirts of Jacksonville, and I only have about 13,000 people in my little area. So it's not a big metropolis or anything. And I used to always use the excuse, well, that won't work in my area, that won't work in my area. And I see people coming on now saying the same thing. I could never charge $250 a month. I could never charge $400 a month, but you can, as long as you give them, you give them good service and you give them more value than you're charging.
If I had $1 for every time you complained about your area, I'd be a millionaire just from your whining, Jan.
Yeah,
so
right.
you're not exaggerating on that.
I'm admitting it.
Yep. And we talked about Amanda Olson. Amanda Olson is east of Knoxville, on the borderline of Appalachia. If you don't know what Appalachia is, it's the last I knew, the poorest area in the United States. It's where literally I worked with a charity organization for many years. And one of the things they did is they had these big RVs converted into dental clinics because you have people up in the mountains who've literally never heard of or seen a dentist, who think that it's natural for your teeth to hurt every day. So again, in a smaller area in that case, Brick, New Jersey is urbanized. It's not out in the sticks, but it was right at the belly of the beast for sure in the pandemic, right between New York City, Philadelphia, and Atlantic City, as just 3 examples right there. And by the way, I've heard every excuse in the book. I've heard, cost of living is so high, people can't afford anything else. Well, the reason that real estate and stuff is expensive in an area is people are making a lot of money. It's always supply and demand. And I've heard, our area is so poor, people won't do it. But so going back to what's working now, in July, in August, and now coming up in September, Jan, you said a whole bunch there. Let's explain it to people. Last year you did what? Well over, how many enrollments did you do August into early September from these orientation days?
That was like 100, but those 2 months it was 100, but that's not normal for us.
Yeah, and that was enrollments, not leads.
Yes.
Not intros, right. And normal enrollments too. So what people are thinking is, well, yeah, I've done a good job working in elementary schools or middle schools, high schools, but they're closed or they're just virtual or they're on modified schedule. I know Jefferson County, Colorado, which is where I live, where my kids are, they're doing virtual for 2 weeks. Then they have a choice of parents do virtual or they do every other day. And then even when the school building is open, doing every other day, they are not letting parents walk in the building. They're not letting any outside providers walk in the building. And they're not doing PE class, for instance. They're not doing normal cafeteria and so forth. Is you started contacting these schools and you found, lo and behold, some of them are still doing the orientation days, right? Mm-hmm. And then we mentioned Amanda a minute ago. One of the things she posted yesterday was she sent out a big package to all of the elementary schools in her town, and she got 9 of them set up. In other words, she's doing 100% of them where she's going in and teaching PE classes, I believe, virtually. And of course, what we'll do is get permission slips in a virtual environment. That means you do a registration form on Eventbrite, or you set up a lead pages form or something. We do a registration form. then you teach the class, and preferably ahead of the class, you set everybody up to come in for appointments. And that type of deal, it'll be, let's say there's 400 kids in the school. You'll typically get 80% registered. Of the 80% registered, you'll probably get half of them, or maybe a little bit less, maybe 40% of them will make an appointment. And then you get maybe 50% show up, 50% enroll. So running those numbers in my head, 400 becomes 200 becomes, probably realistic, or 40 enrollments, maybe a little better than that. So that doesn't hurt anybody's feelings. So if the school is locked up tight, we had, Matt Smith, you remember here in Colorado, all the way back in April, we had one of our members who got 300 kids to show up for a virtual PE class. Again, the school promoted it by email. They promoted it on their website. They promoted it in Google Classroom, set up a registration link for the kids or for the parents to fill out their information ahead of time to give permission. Then they showed up on a big Zoom class. If you were doing classes, enough of them, you can pull them into breakout rooms and schedule appointments, one thing or another. Otherwise, you end up with email address, phone number, mailing address, and then you can direct mail them, text them, phone call, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, Jan, explain a little bit further on the elementary schools. What are some things that you're looking to do now in this wacky pandemic environment?
Well, I'm going to copy what Amanda did today. I just want to find out more. So I'm going to see what she did. But we did something similar. We sent, Rachel came up with a really nice letter. She sent to all the principals. We have a very good relationship with the school. We just stay in touch. We bring them stuff. We offer to help them. We sponsor them. So we're going to try to do some kind of virtual classes with them this year, or some kind of PFA fundraiser, probably, where they come to our school. They'll have a choice of coming to our school or doing virtually. I don't have any of those set up yet, though.
Yeah, and what Amanda did was she mailed a 3D mailer, which included some gifts for the for the principal or the PE. She sent a box to the PE teacher, and she sent a box to the principal to every school in her district. And she got, and there's only 9 in her district from K to 6th grade, and all 9 responded, and she set up a program for them, one of our after school enrichment programs that, feeds them into the school eventually. And she got 9 schools out of that, but she had a coffee mug, a t-shirt, and then she gave a couple of DVDs of testimonials and some videos of what her classes are like and how it's going to benefit their school, how it's going to benefit their students during the pandemic. So it was a pretty elaborate package that she sent. She spent a little bit of money to do it, but that's what you got to do during these efforts. You got to go out and, find these people and pull them in. You can't wait for them to come to you because half of them think you're not even opened.
Yeah. And Paul posted a really nice letter that he did. Paul, you're still here.
Yes.
Paul, tell us about that you posted there. And then Amanda explained to us a little bit this morning of the whole process, but basically she just cloned what I have in the member site on the after school enrichment. She just went kind of a step forward, and she had think of it as a shock and awe package. She has a package with a bunch of little branded materials for the school and so forth, just to get their attention. So she sent them the principals and the PE teachers the entire box with that package of information. Again, all that's in our member website. Paul, go ahead. I'm sorry, I cut you off there.
I'm just kicking it off now, but I drafted a letter. I posted it to the group, and it's basically an introduction letter introducing myself to the principals and the gym teachers, and letting them know what we've done during this time to keep our students engaged. And we talk about our life skills, character development, and basically that our students are coming back. We got 90% of them back, and we're helping them out. And we're here to be of service to you in the school systems if we can. So I kind of went that approach, and then follow it up. But I'm definitely going to put a box together with a book, mug, T-shirt, this letter. but I'm just kicking it off myself. But yeah, I think that's a great thing, and I think the school systems will be all over that.
Yeah, and just to be clear, whether the schools are completely locked down and doing everything by Zoom, remote learning, Google Classroom, etc., or whether they're open or partially open, all of this is working great, right? And in most cases, it's not that we're physically being able to go in and teach a PE class at the school, physically going in and being able to run, say, an after-school enrichment program, or one thing or another, because a lot of probably most schools in North America have that kind of stuff shut down, including UK. I don't know about Australia, but I know UK. But what we are able to do is provide a wonderful resource for the school. The kids are already bored. Heck, around here, a lot of the swimming pools didn't even open over the summer. So they're already bored, but they're starting back in the school. They're looking for other ways to do enrichment. They're looking for other support tools. They're looking for alternatives to PE class. They're looking for, again, most of their after-school enrichment programs. The guy comes in and does Legos, or the science guy, one thing or another, all got axed this year. But you don't have to be the one that gets axed. You can come in and do all this stuff virtual for them. So the going back to student retention, here's Master Smith, Master Moody, jump in here. But we talked to a lot of schools who are in the lifeboat, hoping that they're going to get rescued in this whole deal. And I would say there's some commonalities. Commonality number one is they think that people in their area suddenly don't have money because of the short-term economic situation. Well, it's true for some. If I predominantly did, cardio kickboxing and predominantly had 23-year-old women who are mostly like hairstylists and waitresses, I'm overgeneralizing, but are in those kinds of impacted categories. Sure, that's a category that's going to have an impact. However, if I predominantly teach kids and families, and I predominantly have white collar professional families, and even most blue collar professions, they didn't get impacted, right? Now, they and in most cases, they have more discretionary income, because if their income didn't get impacted, and then the money they normally would be spending elsewhere, they can spend that with you. So for everyone who had an impact financially, there's 9 or 10 that are just fine, right? So that's one thing, is we hear, oh no, nobody has any money and all my students are going to need to cancel their program because their job is at risk. Master Smith, what's another thing that we hear from the failure crowd on this thing?
Well, what everybody failed to do, and it's like a 1-2 punch. They either didn't do their marketing, or they let their students drop out. And they let their students drop out because they didn't reach out and engage them by text, by email, by telephone, by direct mail, and let them know that your classes are going on as normal, same schedule, same testing schedule. All of our schools are doing their normal testing. They've done buddy days. They've done seminars. Paul Pendergrass is doing a movie night outdoors. I mean, all of these extra things that we did before, we're still doing. But what happened is that some people dropped the ball. They cut their marketing back. But more importantly, they let 25 to 50% of their students fall by the wayside. Now, it doesn't matter. Now you can still reach out to them. There's 2 ways to increase your active.
Well, let's stay on this for a second, Matt Smith. Then we'll go to that. Is the failure response was, 1, nobody has any money. 2 is students don't want to learn on Zoom. They don't want to learn remote. They don't want to learn through these patterns. So they're or in addition to that, failure pattern was, this is not worth as much as our normal program. So therefore we need to do some kind of cheap intermediate thing, or people just aren't willing to pay the normal prices, right, Master Smith? So you had people don't like Zoom. You had, this isn't worth as much. and you had people don't have money, right? They also, and frankly, you know, most schools are crappy at marketing to begin with. But guess what? All of a sudden the pandemic hit, and Jan, you're a very smart operator, but even you freaked out and pulled everything for a while, right? And had to have the example, in this case, Amanda Olson, that, oh, wow, this still works. You know, people are still willing to enroll and willing to do it. So, Matt Smith, isn't that true? Is Paul, you were just talking about several of your association members, and they've just given up because they don't believe there's opportunity out there. And reality, there's probably more opportunity than normal. And a lot of the things that we would do, some of the things we would do marketing wise isn't available right now, but an awful lot of it is working better than ever, right?
And you have to educate them on why this is the time. I mean, to be honest, Master Oliver, with these people and our students and our future students, this is a better time for you to be marketing because we have less competition than any time. All of the other sports and activities are pretty much shut down. So we have like an open shot at them. We have to let these parents and our students who dropped out why it's so important for them to be doing it, because we know psychologically these are, you know, kids are getting anxiety from being cooped up. They're not exercising. All of that is a negative for kids. So they need this positive reinforcement that martial arts can do. And that's why if you don't reach out to them and send them a letter, call them, send them a text to let them know. And that's what a lot of our schools did, was to re-educate them. Every time I had the most common thing that I heard from some of our members was, I have all these people calling me wanting to freeze their program. And I said, well, you tell them, the Mrs. Jones, this is exact opposite of what you should be doing. This is even more important for Tommy to be doing it, to not lose sight of his goal of reaching black belt and beyond. Because we understand that during this pandemic, kids are not being as active physically and engaged mentally. So that's what our program is all about. And our character worksheets we have and the other systems that we have in place that keep them motivated. Well, with these virtual classes, what I found that people were missing is that rapport. That's why we've got to really interact and teach those virtual classes just like we did the live classes, where we were spotlighting students, giving them positive reinforcement, giving stripes for all those character worksheets and things they were doing at home on a regular basis, doing the progress checks like we normally did, and our testing like we normally did. So it was, you know, every day that we went farther into this pandemic, we realized what was going to work in this pandemic is exactly what was working before, except we just had to do it on a different platform. And then as things started opening up, we had even more platforms, because we had people could do a training in the park, in their parking lot, in the front of their school, the back of their school, inside, virtually, recordings of those classes sent to students. So there were so many opportunities for our students to train that we shouldn't really be losing students. And that's why that's so important.
And let's break that down a little bit more. So back in March, we initiated the entire class schedule via Zoom. And
exactly the same way it was.
Exactly the same class schedule. Just Master Clark, I stole it from him, but he talked about it like when your lease is up and you move down the street, just relocating to a different building, right? We did the entire class schedule on Zoom when we weren't able to be in the school, or when we were able to be in the school on a limited basis, doing the entire class schedule on Zoom and doing the entire class schedule on a limited, perhaps by appointment in the school. And then we added remote learning support, which a lot of people tried to do that first. They sent the students a video of doing the form and asked them to send a video back of them doing that. That doesn't work for retention. Unless you're paying attention, you're giving them feedback, you're interacting, virtually patting them on the back if you can't be there in person, the remote thing just by itself doesn't work. I saw that with my son in his middle school. It didn't work for them. They did a horrible job in the spring, and it didn't work for any of the big organizations who tried to do it that way. That just doesn't work by itself. But what does work is the class schedule by video conference combined with Google Classroom or RevBlogs is a wonderful software that does this, and it lets you track if they've watched it, how much time they spent on it, what assignments they did, lets them post assignments, etc. So we did by Zoom, and then also remote learning supports and tools and so forth. We also added curriculum, we added textbooks, we added homework assignments, we had it mailed or personally delivered to their home. Then, as we got where we could do a little bit more of this, the schools ordered privately branded face masks for everybody. So face masks with a school logo on it. They started having classes at the football field or at the park, started doing things in the parking lot of the school, even if they couldn't be indoors. Then as some areas started to be able to do indoors, then it was check the temperature on the way in the door, have privately branded masks to give to them, have disposable gloves if they wanted that they could have, spacing the classroom out so they can't get more than, hand sanitizer. You love hand sanitizer or washing their hands, but big displays of hand sanitizer. You can even
And
do a
they
little private.
videotaped all of that and sent it to all those students that weren't coming in, even if they've been doing virtual or they haven't been doing virtual, just to let them know how safe it was and how they were following the social. And that opened up a lot. Some people said they got as much as 25% of the ones that had left back in when they saw how safe it was.
Yeah, taking pictures of the outdoor classes, taking pictures of the indoor classes, taking video, obviously sharing it on social media, sharing it by text, sharing it by email. Now, if you're going to do that, make sure it looks safe and make sure it looks social distanced. But giving the mask, checking the temperature, hand sanitizer at the front, getting them to wash their hands, giving them disposable gloves, having a trash can where they can throw all that stuff away on the way out of the door, spacing the classroom so that they're no closer than 6 feet apart, organizing drills in one thing or another so that they're not, touching each other or interacting too closely. I had to be more creative with, say, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu than, maybe with Goju Karate, but working on that level of creativity, simulcasting then all of the classes that are held in the school so that they can do it from Zoom or they can do it in the classroom. As you said, Master Smith, having recordings in one thing or another that shows them how well run it is and how safe it is, but also then posting that stuff, not only letting them do a simulcast, but posting the recording so that they can go through and watch it 2 hours later or the next day or something like that and roll through. Maintaining individualized progress updates either in the school or in the park or on Zoom. And as we do this, Matt Smith, as we've been talking a lot, is there's a spectrum of students, and this is not a thing where the light switch just flips back on and everything's back to normal. I don't think that's going to happen for a long time. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe 2021 starts out different. Probably we're still more or less operating this way, at least through the spring, maybe into next summer. But what we're focusing on with that is that there's a spectrum of students. As soon as you're allowed to operate in the facility, you probably have 25% of the students who immediately come back in and aren't particularly concerned about any of this stuff. Then you have 25% of the students who are going to, maybe they have pre-existing conditions. Maybe there's 3 generations living in the household. Maybe you have a 9-year-old kid who has asthma and they live with their grandparents. There's all kinds of different reasons, but 25% or 30%, I think the surveys bear me out on this, that aren't coming out of their house and going and doing a group activity like this until there's a vaccine that's proven, until there's maybe a couple of different treatments and so forth, right? And then there's the great middle ground. Frankly, that's me, who as they look at businesses and they look at activities, they're judging as they go. Are they being safe? Is it social distanced? Does the place look sanitary? Does it look like there, is there good airflow, et cetera, right? So you want to not be in a hurry to push people to come back into the facility if you're open in the facility. Getting them to come out to a big outdoors event is a good intermediate step because people can get comfortable with that first, right? And may be comfortable with that and may not be comfortable going indoors for a while. And Matt Smith, as we've been talking about with all of this stuff, it's really having kind of an all of the above approach. That means right now, we're still doing first intros and second intros by Zoom. We're doing intros live at the park, and we're doing intros where we can physically in the school. It means we're doing enrollment conferences by Zoom. It means we're doing enrollment conferences when they show up at the park. It means we're doing enrollment conferences in the facility if we can do them in the facility. Right, Master Smith?
And it's all a combination thereof. And Master Oliver, Amanda Olson is on now.
Good.
If you wanted to ask her a few questions, I asked her if she could join us for a few minutes.
Oh, great. Hey, Amanda, give us.
She's unmuted, so you can ask her now.
Yeah, Amanda, you missed the entertaining start to the deal. We had 3 people who thought that profane rap music and showing us their butt was a useful thing
Oh,
to do.
man, I hate I missed it.
Yeah,
You can see it on the recording.
Okay, good.
it's probably more entertaining on the recording than it was in person. So, but anyway, you were one of our members who really started out the gate on keeping your enrollment flow smooth, right? Tell us about how that started out and how things are still going on. And by the way, before you do that, tell them a little bit about your location and give us a sense of what your gross has been the last few months.
Demographic too.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was a lot.
I was born in, no.
Yeah.
I live in Northeast Tennessee, up in the Appalachian Mountains, Smoky Mountains. And the town I live in is about 65,000 people. My husband and I opened the school here 20 years ago, and we've just raised our family here. So that's just kind of, the basics. But we do run a successful school here. One of the things that people always ask is, when they hear that we're doing well, well, we must have a high income group, but we really, being in the Appalachian Mountains, it's really one of the poorest areas in the country. That we have. Our median yearly annual income in our city is around $35,000 a year. So it's not a big a place where there's just a lot of money floating around. It's a rural area. I have people drive in from 15, 20 miles to come to classes and that sort of thing. So that's where I am. And I've been with Master Oliver and Master Smith's group for just at 3 years. And we have essentially doubled our monthly gross, going from, $45,000, $50,000 a month to now doing 80, 85, and even higher. We've had some months in the $100,000. So that was where we were and where this group's been able to take us. Even though we had been in business for about 20 years, we had a lot to learn and good stuff to move us forward. And then as far as COVID goes, we were just like everybody else, rattling right along, doing great. And boom, everything came to a stop. And just like I'm sure everybody experienced, people calling in, wanting to cancel their membership or not come and that sort of thing. So, and some people we just pivoted immediately and had our classes online, live on Zoom. So we had an option. We were still open to be able to keep students. But, some people lost their jobs and you did lose some people. So my thought was, I really don't want to skip a beat as much as possible. So we need to enroll people at this time. And so we focused on taking our regular enrollment process, making it virtual on Zoom. And in the month of March and April, we signed up well over 40 people on Zoom only. Just complete virtual memberships. And we're still doing that. We've had 6 virtual memberships in the last 8 weeks, virtual only. So we're doing in-person and live Zoom classes. And so some people are still, enrolling in that environment.
Yeah. And talk about the enrollment process itself. I'm sure it took a little bit of time to get comfortable with the virtual process, but tell us a little bit about that, about how that went and compared to what you were used to pre-pandemic.
So our normal procedure is when we have a lead to call, text, and email them to try to set up an introductory appointment, bring them in for the appointment, give them an introductory lesson, a trial class, and then enrollment. So that is our normal procedure. And so we worked on maintaining that in a virtual environment. So when we got a lead in, which we actually kind of doubled down on our marketing when COVID hit, because there was no other way for me to reach people but through media. So when we got a lead in, we would call, text, or email. We set up the introductory lesson, but we set it up on Zoom. So we still did everything that we did in person. We just did it on Zoom. We would set up at that introductory lesson, go over the schedule and then schedule them for their very first class. And then once they came to their class, we would also schedule, if we needed to, a second trial class, or the enrollment conference. And then we just kept our verbiage and our script and everything the same. It was just over Zoom instead of sitting across from somebody at a table. But the process of contacting the leads, setting an introductory appointment, setting a trial class, talking to the parents on Zoom, just like we would if they were in the school, and then setting an enrollment conference, and then just going forward from there. So it was, as far as our close rate, we talked to a lot more people than normal to get an actual enrollment. So, getting over 40 enrollments, that was a lot of introductory appointments. But we did not go over the enrollment process as far as how much lessons cost and things like that until after they had done their first trial class. So if they did the intro but didn't show up to the trial class, of course we try to get them back, but they weren't a very strong lead. But if they came to the trial class and the parents were engaged and involved, we knew that was a strong lead, and we would have an enrollment conference.
And you got those 40 in 1 month, right?
Over a 6-week period, yes, sir.
40, yeah, I think it was even 42 if I remember.
We had 30 in 1 month, and we were closed down for 10 weeks. So the first 2 weeks was definitely a pivot, like, what are we supposed to do? And then we just kind of, right after we figured, okay, this is going to last more than 2 weeks, just kind of started hitting it real hard.
Yeah. I do remember not so kindly yelling at you because you posted a picture of the school and you had this big banner that said something to the effect of "We will be back" or "We will reopen," and I said, "Burn that banner! You are open."
I did.
Yeah.
It was. I will admit I had some emotional moments. I know I'm pretty even keel all the time, but
we had to talk you off the ledge. I remember.
I'm talking everybody into the breakout rooms. That's why I haven't been saying much here. But I think part of the issue, Amanda, would you say that part of the thing is they'll be watching everybody, and when you have it's understandable to have the emotional moments. I'm sure everybody's gone through it on the call, especially during the pandemic. It's a crazy time. But part of the deal is to be when we're part of this, and you see other people doing well, and you get the feedback, and also getting, kicked in the butt a little bit sometimes, or kicked in the butt a lot sometimes to get, on these kind of topics, because you got to get pushed a little bit. Otherwise you end up, it's easy to cave in on some of these things.
Right. And I think that one of the things that was most helpful, to be honest with everybody here on the call, I don't know what would have happened if I had not been part of this group. I don't know that I would have had the advice and the support, like you said, or the kick in the butt that I needed. Just the knowledge that, hey, okay, what I learned through this over the last few months is I do this, no matter what's going on around me, I got to find a way to reach people and enroll them in martial arts. That's how I make my living.
Yeah. And I remember a conversation we had, must have been late April, is you had said, and a couple of others had said, well, you know, we're keeping our student body and we got enrollments going, but our cash numbers are down, right?
Right.
And, you know, we diagnosed it pretty quickly all of a sudden we were, if we were doing renewals, people weren't asking for big down payments or weren't asking for paid in fulls, maybe had gotten squeamish about big down payments on the enrollments, and all of the, because normally we'll be maybe 50% billing, 50% in-house, or maybe 65% billing, 35% in-house. And if you start getting where it's 90% is the billing, you're leaving a lot of money on the table, right?
You're not working. You're not working. You're coasting.
Yeah.
When you're only sitting back and letting the billing fund your gross, then it means that you're not going out and really working it, because, you know, we say as the minimum, it should be at least a 60-40, 60% from billing, and at least 40% of your gross should be coming from down payments and initial investment, you know, with the new students or renewals coming in.
And maybe some paid in fulls, but not 6 months paid in fulls, you know, like 4-year paid in fulls. And unless anybody get the idea, we mean chasing cash all the time. What we always want to do is make sure the billing pays all the bills. So all of the ACH is hit, and the rent is paid, the payroll is paid, the regular marketing expenses are paid, you're paid, the utilities, the phone bill, everything else is paid. And then everything else that comes in is just profit to the bottom line. So we're not talking about getting in that, you know, that roller coaster ride or cashing out every enrollment that comes in for 6 months. That's just idiotic. But what we are talking about is big initial tuition for enrollments, big initial tuition for renewals, big monthly payments, and you know, maybe 10%, maybe 20% of the renewals pay in full for 3 or 4, 5 years, and those add up. Amanda, you were talking in depressing terms about the demographics of your area. What are you charging now? What's a new enrollment?
It's $247 a month for our basic program, and then we have 2 upper level programs from there that people can renew to. So starting at the base of $247, and we went to that $247 price about 8 months ago.
Yeah, and stayed there during the pandemic, by the way.
Right. We, you know, and that was one of the things that, you know, you mentioned to us was don't, you know, you're still doing what you do. Don't change the price just because it's virtual. And it really made zero difference.
Yeah.
You know, if I had gone down on my price because it was virtual, I would have lost a lot of money.
Yeah. You would have enrolled the same number of people, by the way.
Right.
They just would have paid you less.
Right. And now, you know, those students are in, you know, a lot of them are in person now, the majority of them, you know, we're at about 85-90% of our students are in person now, but we still have that strong virtual presence. And, you know, and it was just seamless. Okay, I come to class, nothing changed as far as enrollment, and then we're renewing them to the higher level programs.
Yeah, and some of the people weren't asking for the down payment. They were like, that was going to be their incentive to get them to join during virtual. Is I'm not going to charge them a down payment, just the first month's tuition, which, you know, we knew we didn't have to do that because the program sold itself. And that's really keeping it the same, you know, everybody following that same motto. And every time they wanted to change something differently, we say, well, try to copy what you were doing before, not change what you were doing before.
Yeah.
Right.
And how much are they paying initially when they enroll for you, Amanda, now?
For us, we have, it's $300 to enroll. And if they enroll today, it's $200.
Okay. Plus the first month.
Plus the $247, yes, sir.
Right. So typically it's $447 initially, $247 a month. And soon you'll be at $647 initially, because I'm going to keep browbeating you until you get there.
Okay.
just as a warning.
And that's
just what I thought I was saying.
That's pretty consistent. Everybody is doing about, you know, close to 500 to 600 down is where you should be, you know, with either a 250 or 300 down plus your first month of a 200 to 300 monthly payment as the kind of the start point.
Well, and let's give everybody a simple rationale. you know, a lot of times you're generating enrollments through like labor intensive stuff, and labor is the most expensive thing we have usually, right? But we tend to discount that. We tend not to think about that. But if you're shifting into paid media, so let's say that I'm shifting into Facebook or TV or whatever, you know, whatever media it is. And now I'm just going to pull a number out of the head. Let's say that it costs $500 in marketing dollars to get that enrollment. Well, it's very easy to justify. If they're paying, let's say $597 initially, $247 or $297 a month, because the day they enroll, you broke even. Now, I know some people have to break it up, and some of them only give you a couple $100, and then they give you the rest of it in 2 weeks or something. But the principle is, if we can get it where you break even the day they enroll, then you feel much more comfortable spending that amount of money to put it into media to advertise, right? So I'm always looking at, because otherwise, what, you would go 3 months negative, 4 months negative, 5 months negative. A lot of big advertisers do that. A lot of big direct response advertisers do that. But for our purposes, if we can pay back the marketing within a couple of weeks even, right? Because there's the lead to intro to enrollment cycle, maybe it's normally a week. If we can pay back the advertising cost in a week, then you can keep putting that money back in and keep putting that money back in and feel comfortable with it. So what my conclusion was a long time ago is, one of the things I can convince people to do is spend the amount of money that somebody's going to give you initially to get them. And so therefore you can now justify direct mail. You can justify now Facebook advertising, pay-per-click advertising, retargeting on Facebook, retargeting on Google, you know, and a bunch of other stuff. But you can justify that. Of course, it used to be, still is to some extent, newspapers and newspaper inserts and maybe TV advertising and so forth. But if you're just doing, you know, maybe they pay nothing down, and in 6 months they start their payments at $140 a month. Well, you end up with just feeling like all you can do is referrals and have some buddy events, and you can be out at a live event occasionally. But if you're really getting a good commitment from them up front, then you can afford to spend that money and psychologically feel comfortable spending that money. Is that making sense? Amanda, what would you add to this, or Paul, Jan, Rachel, if you guys are still there? I don't. Oh, there's Jan. What would you guys add to this since we've been utilizing your time? And I'm sure everybody appreciates it, but it's great feedback to have.
Well, one thing I would say is it's not too late to get into the schools in whatever capacity that is. So some of your counties might be doing orientation still. And so I would still try to call tomorrow morning, probably too late today, but contact them tomorrow morning and see what's going on and see what you can do. You know, there are so many other options they have. They're starving for fundraisers. They can't do a lot of their fundraising opportunities that they've been doing in the past. So setting up something with the schools, and just don't give up on those, is a big one right now.
Yeah, and see, in normal times, non-pandemic, is what we have found is going into a carnival, going into orientation days or back to school days, whatever they call them, is a wonderful thing. Going in and doing a PE teacher for the day, or, you know, Barry started calling it school talks, but going in and doing my PE teacher for the day, but getting permission slips ahead of time, that's the key to making that work. Going in and doing an after school or before school enrichment program promoted by a PE teacher of the day. And there's other things, but those all work really well. All of them have a virtual equivalent, right? So some of these schools are doing, you know, like here in Jefferson County, they did, for my son's middle school, they did a Zoom meeting with all the parents that went on for a couple of hours. Well, that was their version of orientation and explanation of what was going on. They probably would have loved for us to come in and say, you know, and since there's not regular PE classes, one of the things we're offering for free is, you know, the Mile High Karate program that they've been doing with us. And here's what you need to do. And here's the link. And by the way, we'll send that out by email and we'll post it in Google Classroom and so forth for everybody. They would have been happy to have that in many cases come into the deal. The PE teacher, we already explained that, is you can do a virtual class for the students. You can segment it up by grade, by class block. In my son's school, they have A block and B block and C block and D block. You could do it by block as long as they have a registration form ahead of time. So you have the ability to proactively follow up on them. That still works great. You could use that to promote an enrichment program where there was a fee for the enrichment program. There could be a $49 fee or a $29 fee. My preference would be set up a registration form, but have all the money go directly to the school. So I don't touch the money and it's purely a volunteer activity. And Rachel, that's the type of thing you and your mom do a lot, right? There in normal times, and it can still be done in virtual situations, right? Paul, what would you add to that if you are or can be unmuted? Your lips are moving and we can't hear you. Let's see. Well, we'll try again.
He's unmuted now.
Okay.
There you go.
Wait, he just
There you go.
muted himself back there.
I really think, I mean, not to, beat a dead horse, but I think it's just a matter of, like, I know our mindset here was, I'm in a fight. And I'm not laying down.
Yeah.
I'm not laying down. So we got to busy on just our basics. We tried to keep in touch with everybody. So, I mean, just to echo what everybody's been saying, the phone calls, I would not underestimate the power of the contact, engaging your students, the phone calls, the texts, the little handwritten notes. We went as far as to drop books off. We delivered to, I don't know how many hundreds of books that we delivered, and we put them in everybody's mailbox. And we said it was required reading, and the Jocko Willink books, The Way of the Warrior for the kids. I mean, I put those all in the mailboxes, and then we had, Zoom chats about it on our leadership classes. Things like that. I mean, those are the things, I mean, we hear all the time, and sometimes we hear it so much, we figured, yeah, I've been there, done that. But I got to tell you, the parents really liked it, and the kids liked it. And if I got one, I got 10 testimonials saying, that was so nice, you guys. I can't believe you guys did that. Oh my God, they needed that. They had to do that. So those little things that, so service. And you got to put it in your mind that you're going to work a little harder than before. Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody who's thriving right now who's not also exhausted. I mean, to be fair.
Yeah.
To me, it's a lot more stressful teaching a martial arts class by Zoom than it is in person. It takes more energy to pay attention to body language. It takes more energy to see whether you've got parent engagement. It takes more energy to give feedback, but it works fine, right? All of that works fine. And it takes more energy to keep people engaged if you can't put your hand on their shoulder and pull them into the office and have a chat randomly when it looks like they need it. So, but it's just adapting and being creative. Paul, you used a great metaphor, which I've used a number of times, at least behind the scenes. To me, it's like, back in our kickboxing days, I say our Master Smith's kickboxing days, but you always knew a winner from a loser the first time they got knocked down, right? If the guy gets knocked down and he comes back stronger, you got somebody who's a winner, and in his mind he's there. And if the first time they get punched in the nose, or the first time they trip and fall down or get hit and fall down,
Right.
If you see the body language change, they're not there anymore. And this is the same. I'm amazed the number of martial artists who are supposed to have character and perseverance and indomitable spirit, that as soon as they got punched in the nose in this thing, they just wilted.
Right.
It's just amazing to me. Is that a fair analogy?
It sure is. It's just, it's like the old, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah.
And this was our punch in the face. And my set was, I'm not laying down.
Yeah. Well, our expectation is that you and Jan and Rachel and everybody else is going to finish 2019 ahead of finish 2020 ahead of 2019, right? And so the focus right now is, if there was a little bit of a cash deficit, in April and May is we're looking at doing some payoffs, some paid in fulls on balances, looking at a massive renewal blitz, and have mostly been really strong in July and August on enrollments, but accelerating that through the fall. And Paul, were your enrollments, how did they compare this year with 2019?
Well, of course, we were a little off. Like I mentioned before, we're about 10% down, but we're really picking it back up now. So, I mean, like last month, I think we had month of July, I think we had an $80,000 month. So it's a little off. You know, I'm not too excited about that, but we're not, you know, I take it as a win.
Yeah.
I take it as a win. We're down 10%. But we're putting business on. Like we had a dozen contracts this month, a dozen last month. We had we took $8,000 in cash money, and you know, cash money, dead presidents, and which is always nice. Thank you, Master Smith.
For that idea.
Thank you, Master Smith.
Yeah.
Master
Well, you know, could I mention something? I was gonna, as I'm going through, and again, guys, I haven't been talking so much because I'm trying to get everybody in these breakout rooms for you guys. We really want to get for all the new people, and also for our current members. We're doing a couple things for you, and Master Oliver hasn't talked about this very much because you guys have been kind of digging into the nuts and bolts of what you should be doing. But there's a couple pieces that you really need to take advantage of. One is we've got a list of a whole bunch of free resources, a checklist of exactly what to do to recover and get moving forward. And it's really a step-by-step set of things that you need to do. I mean, everybody needs to have that. All of our members already have it, but that there's that plus a whole bunch of other stuff. Master Oliver can go into more detail about that. Bob and Mindy are kind of standing by in these breakout rooms. I'm trying to get everybody put in there one-on-one, and I'm sending a few of you guys there and you're not joining. So if you're having problems with that, kind of at the end of our meeting here, we'll give you another way to get contact us about that. And then also we weren't able to get Tracy Thomas on the call because of technical reasons. He's up in a different wine country, as we mentioned.
Virginia wine country.
Yeah, the other wine country that's not on fire. But we're also really concerned. We've talked a lot about the online marketing that everybody's doing. And so what we want to help you with is an evaluation of where you're at with your online marketing. And very frequently we're finding that there's a lot of really small things that you need to fix that make 10 times difference in what you're doing online. And Bob's going to set you up with an evaluation.
Yeah, literally 10 times.
Sometimes 100 times.
Yeah.
Sometimes 100 times. Sometimes what you've got going on is broken. And actually, for some of our members here, we still need to do that with you guys as well. So and that's what Tracy was actually coming here to talk about. There's really so much content that we want to give you. So if you haven't gotten in the breakout room with one of the guys, with Mindy or Bob, then please make sure you pay attention when I send you there. And that's what I'm kind of quarterbacking right now. If you're one of our members, we may or may not be sending you there because we may have already evaluated that you've done some of this stuff. But please go to that because we've got a lot of stuff that we want to give you that's going to be follow-up from this meeting. You really need it. So, you know, make sure you pay attention to that, follow the directions. They're just trying to make sure we get that to you. So anyway, Master Oliver, I don't know if you want to follow up on that. Sorry to interrupt where you were going there, but we really need everybody to individually get with those guys so that we can take care of you guys individually.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're about at our time limit, but what I will, at the website, martial art, for anybody who's not one of our members, you guys have all gotten all this stuff, but at the website, martialartstimulus.com, that has all of the free resources. I mean, it's just a ton, including the checklist for operating when you're under complete closure, and checklist for operating in the gradual reopening stage here. And a bunch of our all hands on deck, behind the scenes member meetings, and a ton of other materials. There's a number of guests on here right now. And if you didn't already talk to Bob and or Mindy about setting a time for us to follow up and to give you some more information, just stay on here and we'll set a time to do that. It's not a sales pitch or anything. We just want to have the industry, you know, the industry is really under a major collapse right now. I'm guessing 40% 35 to 40% shut down. I've heard major organizations that have lost 150 locations, people who had 45 locations who've lost a third of them, schools that are down by individually by 60%. And I'm sure you're seeing it. I'm seeing it every day. People have been in business 20 years going, farewell, I'm retiring, or one thing or another. Even some of the so-called gurus, whose sage advice is, it might be a good time to retire. That's really unfortunate because there's no reason not to thrive right now. So anybody who didn't get a chance to set a time, we're happy to talk to you both about your online as well as your offline, and give you some additional material. For members, everybody who's relatively new, if Bob hasn't gotten hold of you about a progress check with Grandmaster Smith, and we want to go through your current numbers, look at now versus February, and look at your August month end as we're coming to the end of August, make sure you call Bob directly and schedule that time. So we want to do a progress update with all of our current members. Many of you have done that recently, and if not, we want to make sure we get you on the phone.
Yeah, Matt Sullivan, one of the members that just did the progress check, and we've got him. He's got his enrollment process and intros down in his marketing. So then we move him into the renewal. MJ, his first renewal, he did a $20,000 renewal. Maybe take 1 minute there, MJ, and just tell him how you did that and how hard that was or easy that was with the pre-framing that we taught you to get you ready, to get your students ready for that renewal conference or that renewal steps.
Sure, absolutely. So it went really smooth. I just followed every single step. I just was a good student. So I listened to all the videos, followed all the steps, and it kind of automatically just happened. It wasn't something that
you mean this shit works?
It works.
And how did you do it? What was the new contract, the new program? Down payment, monthly payment, length of time?
Sure. So we did our Black Belt Leadership course. It's 60 months. Our down payment is $600, and then our monthly rate is $325
for 60 payments. So yep. A $20,000 contract. And the first one you talk to, bang, no problem. And that's what we tell all the members. If you're following all of our pre-step stuff, our pre-framing stuff, the enrollment folder is so important to get engaged with. If you're following those steps, you're doing your marketing, you're doing your intro enrollment, then we can move you into that next step. So make sure you call Bob so we can do a progress check and see if we can jump you in that. The other one that I just talked to on a progress check was Steve Del Castello, and he had 3 renewals already after our conversation. So don't miss out on that opportunity for our current members. We need to do a little evaluation. There's a form you have to fill out. So I need some stats before I can give you a game plan. So do fill out that little form I send you before we talk. And then you'll be the one on here saying, I just did a $20,000 renewal.
Yeah, and as a reminder, if you don't have it written down, Bob's phone number is 720-256-0208. Feel free to call or text him to schedule that progress update. Again, 720-256-0208. I'm sure you have it, but you can call or text him to set that follow-up.
And I just put those in the chat, sir, and also martialartsstimulus.com.
Yeah, and the Rev Marketing link as well, hopefully.
Yeah, I'm gonna post that for our members. If they go to martialartsstimulus.com, I think the easiest thing is if they just set up a time there and get the free stuff. Yeah. And then when they talk to Bob, Bob can set everybody up for the Go To Karate evaluation. Some of you guys are already working with Go To Karate, so that's great already. And he can kind of figure out which one's going to be the best for you. For our members, I'll post the link in our team Facebook group as well.
Yeah, and a couple of people mentioned Elite Digital. We have that all that information for Kate in the Facebook group as well. And if you're missing any of that, we can make sure you have it. Anyone who's a guest who's not a member, who hasn't already set a time for follow-up, just stay on here. Members, thank you so much. It's been great to have you, and let's keep the ball rolling well. Anybody who's not thriving, and most of our team is, but anybody who's not thriving, let's make sure you set a time with Master Smith and we'll follow up and jumpstart things again as well.
Yeah, and MJ told me they had 18 enrollments this month already too. So go on top of the renewals.
You know, and the irony is we have people having great July and August enrollments when most of the industry thinks July and August is slow regardless, and then you overlay a pandemic and they just think they need to curl up in a ball and die and jump off the bridge, which is completely unfortunate. So great.
Yes,
So anybody who's not a member, stay with us here for a few minutes if you don't mind, and everybody who is a member, thank you so much. And if you haven't gotten an updated progress check, make sure you connect with Bob and he'll schedule that for you. And again, I remind you, there's no such thing as overwhelming us with information, but our biggest challenge is not getting enough information about where things are with your operation weekly and monthly. So keep us up to date on that. Master Reyes, I don't know if you're muted or not. I hope Donna's home is safe and sound. Master Rudy, can you unmute Munch and Ernie Reyes?
Master Reyes, yes, sir.
Yeah, actually, Donna was viewing in today, and that was the nice experience of a lifetime. To be able to have all of our master instructors show their martial arts spirit. It's everything that you guys are talking about. Yeah. It's all about team bonding, right? Not just about business, but in life. So thank you guys so much.
Yeah, I didn't see you there, Donna. You're safe and sound. I hope that you see. She says her name is Ernie Reyes, but she's really.
We're all one family. Ernie Reyes Jr.
Yeah, we're all one family. So everybody's safe. Thank you so much.
Good. Yeah, stay safe, Donna. I know it's we have relatives that are up there in wine country as well, and they're right in Sonoma. So they're right in Sonoma. So we've been watching the fire patterns, and I looked at the map and I said, oh, that's right where Donna's living. So stay safe out there. We certainly are praying for you. But yeah, it's a great experience to get everybody out there and chip in, as long as everybody is safe and sound, and pets and family and hopefully property also, but that's not the most important part.
All right, thank you, sir.
Yeah. Well, we share in your pain. Colorado is burning as well. It's quite a ways from me, but the amount of smoke is just unbelievable. They say that Denver has the 5th worst air quality of any city in the world right now because of the whole I-70 strip. There's several fires, Glenwood and Grand Junction, and then even the California smoke is hitting us.
Yeah, that's why we've been down with the unhealthy air, but we're hopefully going to come back up in a couple of days. So
yeah, absolutely.
We're in the fight with you guys.
Yeah. We're going to get you rolling here. I'm looking